Bernt Nelson is a member of our ag economic team for Clemson, and that means that you try to help farmers figure out how much it's going to cost to raise their crop or their animals and what the market might be. So let's start with row crops. How would you go about doing that?
For row crops right now we're putting together our set of budgets for corn, soybeans, cotton, and peanuts to try and put together a projected outlook at what your break-even costs might be, what your expected revenue might be, and your expected costs of producing that crop for the year might be.
So do you actually have a form that's got blanks and they put in their specific information and then total it up and get that figure?
In our budgets, we have a section divided for our estimated inputs, and then there's a separate column for what you might have on your farm where your differences might be incurred, where you can add that up and coincide with what we already have.
So if somebody had an unusual source for a fertilizer or something that gave them a break in that cost, they might be able to have some variation in that particular aspect.
Then they could reduce that aspect to what fit their need, or if their costs end up being a little bit higher than what we have projected, they can increase that on their own to reflect the change.
You also have to then try to gauge, which I guess is a better word than guess for people with PhDs, what the market price will be. And there are many factors that come into that. So let's talk about some of the things that can influence market cost.
Right now, the one that I'm going to use primarily as an example is demand, foreign demand. When we think of all the upcoming policy changes and things that could occur with trade, foreign demand is such a large component of the market concept. So big China buying up soybeans, buying corn, Mexico and the pork industry right now, very large influences on what price might be. The demand is very large in the foreign markets right now, and if that would shrink, we would see that price dwindle as well.
And then there are also factors such as natural catastrophes that I guess could make an influence. If one area of the country had a devastating loss in a crop, then could our crop become more valuable?
Absolutely.
Relative?
And that's always a little bit of a joke in the ag world is darn it, there's a disaster somewhere. Well, prices go up. Is that necessarily such a bad thing then we see that disaster? No, not always. Sometimes a natural disaster can actually prove to have some benefits, especially on the producer who's not in that area.
So we have a good many farmers, and you can't reach them individually. Do you try to put on workshops occasionally where they can come and try to understand how to use the tools that y'all have prepared for them?
Yes, and we just got back from one. It was Scott Mickey puts it on up at Litchfield, just south of Myrtle Beach, where we help farmers develop an actual marketing plan using your current balance sheets, your information from your farm, so you have something prepared going into the upcoming season.
There are a lot of strategies that are too hard for people like me to understand because farmers can sell things early or sell them late. There are positioning tools that they can use. They really have to have a huge understanding of business, don't they?
They really do, and the better handle they have on their business plan and their financial situation, the better. And like you say, there are all kinds of tools available, whether you're doing hedge to arrive contracts with your local elevator or using options in futures markets to kind of try and hedge your crop or produce some price enhancement. But you really have to have a firm knowledge of your finances and your bases before adapting those tools to use.
Did you feel like the training that they get, could you see the light bulb go on occasionally for some of the participants down there at Litchfield?
Absolutely. We had some of the best instructors as far as teaching options and tool usage that I've ever seen.
That's pretty impressive. We're a little state, and to think that we've got that. Of course, I know Scott Mickey. He's based in the same office I am, and I'm very appreciative of the great intellectual abilities he brings. He's also got a nice way of communicating, I think, and that's half of it. You've got to be able to communicate with people, don't you? Yeah. Tell me what it was like with your experience in cattle out there in North Dakota before we were fortunate enough to tempt you to come down to this warmer climb.
From the big move, what I've seen mostly is there's a little bit difference in the way the land is structured and the way we operate. Right now, we're pretty cold, so we don't want to wean calves or start making adjustments in this cold weather in ways that might stress animals. The eastern part of the state is a little bit different than the western part of the state, but as a whole, you tend to see a greater number of animals in operations. And they tend to run those animals on smaller patches of land, just because the grass can tolerate it.
That's true. We are fortunate in South Carolina. The warm days and the mosquitoes, you can count on there being some of that every single month of the year, not like you experienced back in North Dakota. Well, we want to welcome you to South Carolina. Thank you for bringing your expertise to help our farmers stay in business. We want to see those beautiful rolling pastures covered with cows, and we want to make certain that that is the way our landscape stays for a long time in the future.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.